Hello, hello, good evening. It's Monica from Life as Art, and it's Wednesday. Let's create. We're going to be making a card this evening, and we're going to be using our Woolly Friends stamp set to do that, as well as our Splash of Sparkles Designer Series paper. And we're going to be using some Timid Tiger for our card base. And we're going to start off with a little bit smaller piece of cardstock than normal. But we did actually start off with a standard size card base. So we started off with an 8.5 by 5.5, but I have trimmed off 2 1/8 off the end. So we are left with a 6 3/8 by 5.5 and a 2 1/8 by 5.5 piece of Timid Tiger. And we're going to do some scoring with those pieces. So let's bring our scoreboard in. And on our first piece of cardstock here, the larger piece, along our 6 3/8 inch side, we are going to score it at 2 1/8. So 2 1/8. So if you look at the 2 inch and the 2 1/4, the little line right in between is 2 1/8. And then on our piece of 2 1/8 by 5.5, along our 5.5 inch side, we are going to score it in the middle at 2 3/4. So 2 3/4 right in the middle there. Okay, and then we can put our scoreboard away because that's all we need to do for this little bit of a flap over card. We're going to call it a flap over card. I'm going to fold this with the bump side to the inside and crease it down. And then I'm going to take this piece and fold it with the bump side to the inside and crease it down. Easy peasy. Okay, now we are going to add this piece to this piece. So we're going to flip this over, not that it matters, it's the same front and back. And we're going to add adhesive to the entire back here so we can get it stuck down. Let me grab my take your pick tool. And I just, in my brain, realized that I did not cut one of the pieces I need before we started. I'm going to turn this sideways so I can use my measurements here. So we've got 5.5, and we want to put this in the middle, and this is 2 1/8. You know what, if I line it up, the easiest thing is to line it up with the lines centered on the 6 inch. There we go, and then we can line this up with the 6 inch and just kind of move it around because it's going to be like a 1/16 of an inch on either side there, and stick that on down. So now we've got a big flap and a little flap on either side. Okay, now in the middle here, we need to grab ourselves a piece of basic white or white willow, whatever my hand hits first. Basic white it is. And we are going to trim this to the size that we need because I didn't do it ahead of time. So I'm going to bring in my trimmer, and we're going to trim this to 5 3/8. 5 3/8. Oops. By 4 1/8. So 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. Pop my trimmer out of the way. Bring our card base back in. We can add some adhesive to the back of this. Now this is a nice, what I would call a fun fold card. Some people would call it a fancy fold. Probably just because it's not a lot of intricate folding was why my brain says it's a fun fold. But this is going to get centered inside our card like that. And then we're going to bring in some of that designer series paper from the Splash of Sparkles. And I'm going to have 3 pieces that are all the same size, 2 that are the same pattern, 1 that is different, and these are all cut to 2 inches by 5 3/8. This fun little one with the gold foil is going to go on the inside of our card, just on our little flap to the left, or our large flap to the left, whichever way you want to look at it. We're going to center that in this panel. And then this piece of this diagonal stripe with the blues and greens. The Splash of Sparkles is kind of fun because there's some silver foil in there, some holographic foil, and some gold foil. So there's lots of patterns to choose from. This one's going to line up directly on top of our basic white, like that on the right-hand side. And then this piece is going to line up on the left side here on the front. There we go. So we're just gonna maybe I'll line it up this way. And I'm going to, am I going to? No, we're gonna center it. I was gonna say I'll bump it over to the center line, but I'm just gonna center it on there. There we go. And so now we have a nice little spot to write our message on the inside, and we've got our flaps going across and overlapping with each other. But we want to put something on here that kind of sets the stage for our card. And so I'm going to bring in a piece that I've fussy cut from the designer series paper. There's a sheet in there that has all these watercolor rectangles that are overlapping and creating just a fun little space. But I want it to pop a little bit, and because we have that gold foil on the inside, I've cut a piece of gold foil to fit this, and we're going to just layer these up. And then we're going to do some fussy cutting. So this was fussy cut from the pattern paper. And then we're going to center that. So we've got a little bit of gold all the way around. We'll bring in our paper snips. And we are just going to give ourselves a lovely little rim of gold foil. And this is not an even shape. It's wiggledy jiggledy kind of here and there. So we can just play into that. Do all the little wiggles and jiggles, and it doesn't have to be exact. Nope, just add them however you want. Go around. So we're leaving that little halo of gold to make this stand out on the front of our card. And then we're going to do a little bit of stamping. So it's a good thing I pulled out that basic white, because we're going to need something to stamp on. I don't know how I forgot to get that out, but it was easy to grab. Okay, so we're just going to make our way all the way around here. One thing about when you're learning to fussy cut, if you're learning to fussy cut on something that's already wiggledy and jiggledy, then you can just have fun with it. You don't have to be precise, and you just get her done. There we go, all the way around. Now, I probably should have stamped on this before I did all of that, because, of course, I always get ahead of myself. I'm going to use one of the sentiments from our Woolly Friends stamp set. I'm going to use the one that says, "You Make Me Happy." And I'm going to stamp that on with Memento ink, because I think that's going to stand out nicely on my card. And hopefully we won't conflict with our adhesive too much, and it'll stamp nicely. Fingers crossed, everybody. You make me happy. Yay! It worked. All right, let's leave that out because we're going to need it. So I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to bring in a piece of the basic white that we just had, and we're going to do some more stamping on there. We're going to start out stamping one of the body shapes for our sheep. There's a couple different ones. There's one where he's looking straight ahead like this, and there's one where it's a side view. We're going to do the straight ahead. We're also going to do the head because we don't want to leave him without without that. Although if we have him turned around backwards. That would be kind of cute too. And you just see a little fluffy tail or something. That would work as well. Okay, so we've got that. And then we also want to stamp out a little bow. We're going to put a bow on our little sheepy. So there's our little bow. I like that there's some cute little accessories in here. There's a bow and a bell. I decided to go for the bow today. So we can put that aside. And then we're going to bring in the color for our sheep. And because we've got some beautiful blues going on our card, we're going to use the Azure Afternoon for this. And this is the fluffy body of our sheep. There we go. That's going to stamp on there like that. And I don't want my sheep to be this full strength. I don't think. So I'm going to stamp off on my cardstock here, which is fine, because if I decide I want to do, oh, look at that. Let's grab another mat here that we can stamp on. This one's been a little bit destroyed. And see if we can't get that. It's just because I'm using a big block. Maybe that, I'll change that too. I'm using a big block. My table has a bow in the middle. There's a whole bunch of factors at play here. And I was using the hard side of my stamping surface. Let's just plop that back down there like that. All right. And I've probably got it upside down now. Let's see. Which way? Which way? Which way? How did I lose my place? I think. There we go. That's where we want. Okay, let's see if we can't try this better. This is why it's also good to test it out. So, oh, that's better. Okay, I'm going to do 2. And then choose. Yes, I think. Do I want the lighter one or do I want... You know what? I'm going to go for the darker one. I was thinking I was going to go for the lighter one, but I'm going to go for the darker one. So if you ever have an issue stamping a nice clear image, think about the situations that might be involved in having it not come out as clear as you want. So in my case, I know I have a bow in my table. And if you use a large stamp block like I was using before, it's trying to keep your stamp flat for a larger space, if that makes sense. And if you have a bow or a bump underneath, it can lead to that sort of hollow center look that you're getting there. And so having a different surface with a really squishy something can often help to eliminate some of that. Okay, so we're also going to stamp out the little tuft on the top of our little sheep's head. So we've got our a little tuft stamp, and then we want to do up the little bow. So I've pulled in Strawberry Slush, and where am I going with this? There we go. I've pulled in Strawberry Slush, but I don't think I want it full strength, so I'm going to test. And because I'm testing on this nice clean piece of paper, I can go ahead and stamp sheeps and bows and all sorts of stuff. And I think I agree. I want the lighter version of this. So again, I can stamp over here. And then I can come down to my little bow and stamp on there. Make a cute little bow. But I can go ahead and stamp more sheep there and get more sheep for another project. So sometimes I use scratch paper to do my stamping off, but if you know that you're going to use some more sheepies at some point, then do it on here, and you can totally make use of all of those, except for maybe that one. That one is a little odd. Okay, now we get to have the fun of fussy cutting. Yes, there is a punch that punches out the little sheep shape, but we're going to go ahead and do our fussy cutting, because I don't have the punch, but I do have some scissors. We can move our stamping mat and get our fussy cutting done. And it doesn't have to be too hard. We're going to keep all those legs together. We're going to leave a halo around. Again, this is another one that's just kind of lumpy. So you just keep making little arcs with your scissors. And this is a good way to practice doing the pivoting motion while you're fussy cutting all the way around. I like that pop of that azure blue. I hope it looks pretty on the front of the card. The Splash of Sparkles has some really lovely colors in there. There's the Highland Heather, which is a lovely purple. There's Bubble Bath, which is such a soft pink. And then you've got the blues and the Pool Party, and then the foils, as I said before. So lots of choices, which is super fun. And I kind of wandered there. That's okay. We'll keep going all the way around over the little tuft. I love fussy cutting, so the fact that this takes me a minute or so does not bother me at all. But if it's not your jam, there's a punch. They made a punch for that. Let's fussy cut out our little bow. And pivot around. It's funny how the littler it gets, the longer it takes to cut. You would think it would be the opposite, right? Littler things would take less time. But I think it's because you have to concentrate so much more to get around all the little spots. There we go. Okay. We're all done. And let's now go ahead and start adhering these to the front of our card. We've got our nice little flap here. We want to add on our panel on the front. So we're going to put some adhesive on this flap. We'll keep it to the center like that. And then we can come back in and center this on there. I'm going to use my tweezers. Whenever I'm centering things, I find it's much easier to do it if my fingers are not all in the way, holding on to the item. So if I'm able to use my scissors to help me out, all the better. All right, let's give that a nice little crease. And then we've got our cute little sheep, and I think I'm going to use some dimensionals to pop him up. Let me just grab this one. And we've got some here, like that. Pop those on, tweezers. I like how that blue stands out. I wasn't so sure. I thought, oh, I should do it light, but nope, that dark blue is perfect. Okay, let's grab this, pop that on there, and I think we're going to make this little sheepy look kind of tall. We're going to have his head way up here, like so, and then this little guy, grab it like that. We can just stick him on with some glue. Let's see if our glue is happy to come out. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. We'll only need a little touch because we don't want it to get all over the place. And we can just pop his little bow on right like that. Stick it on down. You make me happy. And then, of course, we need a little blingity bling. And because we have our gold foil, we may as well use some little gold sequins as well. So, let's see. Let's pop a couple down here, and maybe one up here beside his little cheeky. Let's grab, oh, helps if you take the end off. Alrighty, turn that guy over, stick it on down, and I'm just gonna make sure I've got the different sizes here. There's a little medium-sized one, and there's a tiny one. And voila, we have our little flippy-flappy card created using this fun shape. I love how it's not a symmetrical kind of shape. We added that gold foil to really make things pop. You make me happy. We have some gold foiling on the inside along with those diagonal stripes. And I think that is just a really cute little card. Came together very quickly, and it's not any harder to make than a regular card, really. All you're doing is just cutting a part of the front and making it into a flap. All you got to do is remember to tuck it underneath those two pieces on the inside and you're good to go. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you feel inspired to create one of these for yourself, and if you do, be sure to snap a photo of it, pop it in the comments where I post the pictures of my card, and then we can all see and be inspired by your artwork as well. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you again soon. Toodaloo! Bye!